They want someone who will meet them where they are, tell them the truth, and lead them somewhere better. Since reading that life-changing book, I've recommended it to countless other women who seem to be in a similar place in life. Now, isn't that what we writers want to see happen with our books? Hey, friend. Welcome back to Your Right Life Coach, the podcast for heart-led authors who want both motivation and momentum. This is Alice, and I'm so glad you're here today. I want to start with a question. Have you ever worked really hard on a piece of writing, stayed up late, revised it, poured yourself into it, and then shared it, only to hear crickets? Or even worse, total silence? Like everyone nodded and smiled and just moved on. If that's happened to you, then stick around, because here's a pattern I've seen over the years of working with writers and manuscripts. That is, a lot of us are writing what we want to write. We're writing what we find interesting, what we think is important, what we feel called to say, what we think people need to read, or even what we think sounds good. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes there's a gap between what we want to say and what our reader actually wants to hear. So let's talk about that gap. And more importantly, let's talk about how to close it. Not by abandoning your voice or your message, never that, but by learning to see your writing through your reader's eyes. Stay with me. This one might change how you think about everything you write. Years ago, I met a woman at a conference, an author who had written a beautiful manuscript, seriously beautiful. The language was lyrical, the structure was solid. This writer had clearly worked on it for a long time. But something was off, and I couldn't quite name it at first. I kept reading, kept leaning into it, trying to connect, and then it hit me. She was writing for herself, not in a selfish way. I don't mean that. She was writing about her own experience, hard things she had lived through, things she had figured out for herself. But she was writing as if the reader already cared about her journey, as if the reader had already decided to follow her wherever she led. And the reader hadn't. They couldn't have, because the reader hadn't been given a reason to track with her. I've seen this pattern more times than I can count. Writers who are gifted, who have something real to say, but who haven't yet made the shift from here's my story to here's what my story has to do with yours. Or from here's the message I want to deliver to here's how I can help you solve that problem. That is the shift that changes everything. I want to tell you something personal here because I think it matters. Years ago, when I was going through a really hard season in my first marriage, I came across an author who wrecked me in the best possible way. I couldn't get enough of what she wrote. I read her first book and 4 more. I told people she was my best friend, and she had no idea I existed. But to me, she was someone who really got me. It was like she saw right through me. She wasn't writing perfect prose, nothing flowery or pretty at all. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was just telling the truth about her own life, with enough honesty and enough specificity that I felt like she was describing my life. And here's the wild part. The thing that transformed my life was that she basically told me, in less than 3 chapters, that I was the problem. I know, not exactly what you expect to love about a book, right? But what she helped me see was if I was the problem, I could change me. I didn't have to wait for anyone else to shift. I didn't have to stay stuck. She handed me back my own agency, wrapped in so much compassion that I wasn't even defensive about it. I couldn't wait to get started on my own personal transformation. That's what readers want. Not beautiful sentences, even though those are wonderful. Not a flawless argument. Not a writer who has it all figured out. They want someone who will meet them where they are, tell them the truth, and lead them somewhere better. Since reading that life-changing book, I've recommended it to countless other women who seem to be in a similar place in life. Now, isn't that what we writers want to see happen with our books? Of course we do. Word of mouth is the best kind of marketing. So think about a book that changed your life. Just one, any book that comes to mind. Was the author perfect? Was the writing perfect? Or was there something so real about it that it reached through the page and grabbed you? That's what I want to help you create. So that brings us to felt needs, a term you've probably heard at a writer's conference, and why felt needs matter more than you might think. A felt need is something your reader actually feels, not something you think they should feel, not something that would be good for them to care about, something they already lie awake at night thinking about, a problem they're already trying to solve, a question they're already asking, an emotion they can't seem to shake. Here's where I see writers missing this. We have something we believe in deeply, a perspective, a method, a truth we've lived through, a paradigm shift that altered our life experience. I'm counting myself in this mix because I'm often the first person to start shouting from the rooftops about something I've learned. But we assume that because it matters to us, it'll matter to our reader. But the reader isn't starting from our conclusion. They're starting from their own confusion, their own pain, their own question. And your job as a writer is to enter through that door. You may have the exact solution they need, but if you don't speak to where they are first, if you don't name their experience, honor their struggle, and make them feel genuinely seen, they won't trust you enough to follow you anywhere. So how do you do that? Here's what I've seen work over and over again. First, get curious about your reader's interior world, not just their demographics, not what genre they like, but what keeps them up at night. What do they secretly wish someone would finally say? What problem are they exhausted from carrying? When you can name that, when you can describe their inner experience so accurately that they say, yes, that's exactly it, you get me, then you've earned their trust. Second, be real before you write. Let that idea sink in for a second. I've edited a lot of books that were technically correct and beautifully written, but emotionally distant. And I've edited books that were messier, more raw, more uncertain, and those are the ones that touched my heart and made me cry at my desk. Readers don't need a teacher who has all the answers. They need a companion, a leader who has been through something and come out the other side willing to talk about it honestly and share their insights. Third, lead them somewhere. This is what I mean when I say readers want a leader, not just a voice. They want someone who will take them from where they are, stuck, confused, hurting, searching, to somewhere better. Every chapter, every essay, every post you write should move your reader forward, even a little. Every time you write something, you should give them something to hold on to. Give them a next step, a new thought, a reason to believe change is possible. You may have heard me say it before, and you'll probably hear me say it again and again, that the writers who connect most deeply are not the ones with the most polished prose. They're the ones with the most honest hearts, the ones most willing to be vulnerable. They're willing to say, here's where I was, here's what I didn't know, here's what I learned, and here's what I think it might mean for you. That is a gift. That is what transforms a reader's life. And you have that in you. I've seen it. I've watched writers discover it for the first time, and it changes everything about how they write. So here's your invitation for this week. Just one thing. Think about your current project, your book, your blog, whatever you're working on right now, and ask yourself honestly, am I entering through my reader's door? Am I focusing on their felt need, or am I coming from mine? You don't have to rewrite anything right away. Just sit with the question and let it do what it needs to do in you. If that question surfaces something for you, if you're realizing there might be a gap between what you're writing and what your reader needs, I want you to know that's a really good sign. It means you're paying attention. It means there's somewhere to go from here. One of the things I do in my coaching work is to help writers discover their blind spots, not to make you feel bad, never that, but because sometimes we can't see the full picture from inside our story. We need someone to sit across from us and ask us the kind of questions that help us look in the mirror to see where we're holding ourselves back. That's what I do. If you're curious, come see me and drop a note at alicekreider.com. I'd love to hear from you. And if you're not quite ready for that, come join us in the Inkwell Collective. It's a community of heart-led authors who are committed to writing with honesty, vulnerability, and intention. Authenticity isn't just a word there. It's how we actually show up for each other, for our readers. You can find the link for that in the show notes. And one more thing, if today's episode meant something to you, would you do me a small favor? Share it with a writer friend who needs to hear it. Think of someone who's been struggling to connect with their readers, or who's been pouring their heart into their writing and wondering why it's not landing. Send it to them. And if you have a minute, a review means the world. It helps more heart-led writers find their way here. I read every review, and I'm grateful for every single one. My friend, I believe you have a story worth telling. Not because it's perfect, not because you have it all figured out, but because someone out there is lying awake right now looking for exactly what you've lived and learned. Go write it for them. I'll see you next time. Until then, keep writing, keep showing up, because your story matters, and your message can change lives.